Hello guys, my name is Desmond and I welcome you to my lesson for today where we'll be looking at your mathematics. As you can see over there, we'll be focusing on question number 4. In this lesson, I've got 3 learners who are currently attending. There's Non-T, I see Tabile is there, Hamiso is there. So, ladies and gentlemen, please do allow me to say it is very much important that I say it is very, very much important because what I'm about to say is massively, massively, massive. Hey, massively important, ladies and gentlemen, that I say a day without learning something new, it's a day wasted. By so saying, Non-T, please. Hamiso, please, 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 please. Please do make sure that by the end of each and every lesson that I conduct, you learn something new. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, over there. So what I'm going to do is to quickly read through the given statement, and then from there, since you guys did indicate that you want to give it a try, I will give you guys an opportunity to give it a try. So almost everything that I've taught you during the year, it is also applicable in this question. So the statement reads as follows. The graphs of f of x is equals to into x plus p close squared plus q, and g of x, which is equals to a over x plus b plus c, are drawn in the sketch below, and the following properties are assigned to those. Otherwise, and have the following properties. Bullet number 1, we've got A being a point having the coordinates of 2.5, which is 5 over 2 and 0. So they say it is a point on the graph. So what you do is to check for A on the graph. So you see A is actually that point over there. Okay, so P is a point which is the turning point of F and lies on the vertical asymptote of G. That's very interesting. So they are saying P is the turning point of F. Where is F? Oh, there it's F. It's the name of that function of which you guys know it very well as a parabola. So they say P is the turning point. Okay, the turning point of F lies on the vertical asymptote. Very interesting. So they're saying P, it lies on the vertical asymptote of G. Where's G? There's G. Okay, G, it is the name of that function, well known as hyperbola. Okay, the vertical asymptote passes through a point having the coordinates of 1 and 0, meaning here at that point, that is where x is 1 and obviously y, it is 0. The horizontal asymptote passes through where x, it is 0 and y, it is 2. Graph G passes through the origin. Where is G? Oh, there is G. It passes through the origin. We do know very well that at the origin we have x being 0 and y being 0. So everything that I've just read, it is therefore represented diagrammatically, as you can see over there. So from what I can see, there's no any additional information available on this graph or otherwise available on the statement which is not shown on the graph. So what you need to be aware of is that you've got 2 types of functions, the one being the graph of F, the other one being the graph of G. You do know very well that for the graph of G being a hyperbola, you've got 2 asymptotes, the vertical and the horizontal. So from what we can see over there, we are given the equations of those asymptotes. And most importantly, when it comes to a parabola with a smiling shape, we do know very well that we've got that vertical line that cuts a parabola into two equal parts, and this line we call it an axis of symmetry. So it seems like that vertical asymptote, it is actually along our axis of symmetry for the graph of f. So now I think we are in good position to start answering the questions. But before I do that, let me welcome any available questions in relation to what I've just read. Anyone who's got a question before I start with our very first question?
No questions.
No question from Tokozo. Anyone who's got a question? Okay. It seems like there is no one who's got a question. So possibly you'll be having some questions as we continue. Here's the first question. Show that the equation of G can be written as y is equals to 2 over x minus 1 plus 2. And this question, it's allocated 3 marks. I'm not sure if there's anyone who would like to give it a try. Remember, guys, whether it's wrong or correct, it doesn't really matter that much. Most of you guys are well aware that with you giving me the wrong answers, it helps me a lot in terms of explaining and addressing that specific problem that you'll be having. So this is me giving you an opportunity to give it a try. Doesn't matter whether it's wrong or correct. There
Can
you
I
go.
try?
Yebo.
Okay, so we are already given that our graph g of x has it has certain points, kodwa-ke they pass through the origin, which is 0
Asymptotes.
and 0. No, not
Oh,
the
okay. All right.
asymptotes, the other
That
values.
that that
And
point passing through the origin.
yes, we have a point 0
Mm-hmm.
and 0. And then
Mm-hmm.
we have asymptotes, which is 2 and 1.
Mm.
So then I would take my equation, this one, okay, yeah, you've already written it. So on the
Mm-hmm.
y value, I would write 0,
Yebo.
as well as on the x value, a
0.
minus 1
Mm-hmm.
plus 2,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have a as ilo.
Oh, so this is where I'm writing a name.
Yes. Okay,
Okay.
and then from here, angithi 0 minus 1 is negative 1. So then I am
Yeah.
going to say negative 1 times u2
Mm-hmm.
loya. And
Mm.
then negative 1 times 0 times anything is 0. So yeah, it's just 0.
That.
So then if I take utuna to the left hand side, I would be left with utuna, which is equal to a.
Which is the same as a being equals to 2.
Yes. And then from here, I am going to say y equals to 2 divided by x minus 1 plus 2. I have proven.
Yes. Exactly that. So the summary of what Nonti was doing over there, this is what you need to prove. But most importantly, you are already given that. So you are actually trying to calculate the A value such that whatever that you calculate, it has to give you 2. So in short, it's more like you actually calculating the A value and then you just plug everything as it is. Remember, the general formula of a hyperbola, it is that plus P plus Q. And I did mention that if A is positive, you have your function in the first and the third. If it's negative, in the second and the fourth. And then now, that P represents your vertical asymptote, of which if it's given, you always write it in the opposite sign there. But this one, which is that horizontal asymptote, you always write it with its original sign. So that's how you score yourself 3 marks. I'm not sure if there's anyone who's got a question in relation to that. Did it make sense to everyone, or is there anyone who's got a question before we move on to the next question? Tabile, Gracie, Kogza, Hamiso. Are you guys okay that side?
From my side, sir.
Okay. No question from Tabile. Okay. I will make an assumption that we are all on the same page. In case if you've got a question, please do feel free to ask a question. Question number 4.2, calculate the coordinates of P. Calculate the coordinates of P, and also this one is given 3 marks. Anyone who'd like to give it a try, this is the opportunity.
Can I try?
Yebo.
So I am already like given Witty like the standard form. So when I am looking at the graph of E graph of f at x, I am seeing that P na angithi they said that P lies on a vertical asymptote of G, which means P na its x value is 1. And then I have a point which is A, and then point A is on graph f at x. So for me to be able to find a value of P, now the Y value for P, what I have done is that I have used my like the standard. Okay, yeah. So on Y I have U0, which is a point over A, and then equals to U5/2 plus U1 plus 1.
Manje u1 ngizombhala kanjani? Isayini yakhe yini?
It's positive.
Okay.
And then squared plus Q. So I'm actually looking for the value of Q. Yeah, I'm looking for the value
plus
of Q
Q.
first. Yes. And
Okay.
then is it okay? Yeah. And then from here, the answer that I'm getting is negative 49/4, which is negative 12,25.
So
Negative
when you
12,
solve all of that, you are finally getting negative 49, you say?
Yes, over 4.
For negative 49/4. What is that as a decimal?
Negative 12,25.
Negative 12,25.
Yes.
Sure.
And then from there, yeah. Yes, I think that's it. Yes, that's it.
Okay, let me go back to the question. Calculate the coordinates of P. So that would mean in you finalizing the question, you don't leave it there. You would say it is 1 and then your negative 49/4. Nay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But wait, Nonti, did we not do this question on our private lesson?
No, we didn't.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure. I'm 100% sure.
Okay. It's either we've done a similar question or something of that nature. But most importantly, guys, I'm very much happy that you made that mistake, non-T. And I am pretty much sure that you will never repeat that mistake. Correct yourself, non-T. Just correct yourself. Wat gaan so?
Can you please repeat?
Wat gaan so? You made a mistake where I circled that part. Can you correct yourself?
Was I supposed to put -1? Oh yes,
Yes.
I was
So,
supposed to put
good
-1.
people. Yeah. So, guys, always remember that if a parabola is given in this format, if it's given in that format, when you substitute your p-value, you substitute it in the opposite sign, just like you do with the graph of g, which is equals to a over x, let's say, plus q plus what is that? Plus p plus q. So everything else is correct. The only thing that you have to do is to make sure that with your value given as a positive there, when you substitute it inside that formula, if it's given in this format, you substitute it as a negative value, then you punch all of that and you transpose. Then that's your y value of the turning point. So what answer are you now getting with a negative substituted there?
-9/4.
-9/4. So can you see -9/4? It's actually a realistic value, a -9/4. Considering that if you look at that function, that distance from there to there is almost closer to the distance from there to there. So you're not really expecting a value way far from 2. I'm not sure if you understand, Nonti. Can you see 12? It's a bit far. It's more like the turning point. It's somewhere down there. Can you see? So it's one of the
Yes.
indications that you might have actually made a mistake somewhere. So remember, guys, whatever answer that you get, it has to make sense. If it doesn't make sense, just try to check if you've made a mistake somewhere, somehow. So this is the only tricky question that I thought you guys would get it wrong. So for the upcoming questions, I'm going to quickly run through those to guide you in terms of how you answer those questions. And then from there, we'll see if we can tackle another question. So I'm going to remove all of this. But before I do that, anyone who's got a question on this question 4.2,
No
or does it
questions.
make sense to everyone? Tabile, Grace, Cox, Hamiso. Any question?
No question. No questions from me.
Okay. So, for the sake of time, I'm therefore going to take over the rest of the questions. I'm just going to leave you with 1 or 2 questions that you'll have to work out by yourself. So Let's see. 4.3. The question says write down the equation of the vertical asymptote of P if P of x is equals to G of x minus 1. And this question is allocated 1 mark. Okay, this is something that you need to understand. What exactly is the question there? They want you to write down the equation of the vertical asymptote. We do know very well that we've got two types of asymptotes, the vertical and the horizontal. How do we write the horizontal? It's written as y is equals to something. What about the vertical? It's written as x is equals to something. Meaning, this is what examiner wants us to provide as an answer to his question. So, what asymptote are they talking about? They are talking about the asymptote of P. If you look there, they are not talking about that P. This is P for that point. The P that examiner is talking about, it's a small letter P, which is a P for the function, not P for those P's that you're seeing over there. It's more like they're saying for D for Desmond, for example. So don't confuse that P with the P for the turning point and the P for that P on the equation. So this is the equation for P of x, which is equals to G of x minus 1. For the fact that they've actually involved a G, that means on the graph of G, where you see x, you then replace it with that, so that you can therefore get the equation of P. Meaning, this is what one would do. What is the equation of G? Let me see. We got that equation. It's actually given as y is equals to 2 over x minus 1 plus 2. And you do know very well that this position or this part of that equation gives us the horizontal asymptote, which is that one. This is the portion or the part where we get the vertical asymptote. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen. So it's more like you need to be aware of exactly where you will get your answer. Meaning, where we see x, we're going to substitute it with that. So we are having 2 into x minus 1 minus that one. So we just substituted there with that. If inside it was x plus 17, you are going to substitute x plus 17 there. But most importantly, remember that plus 2. Then this is equals to, you just remove the brackets. You end up having 2x minus 1 and minus 1. It's minus 2 plus 2. So now, this is where you get your vertical asymptote by taking the whole of that as it is and you equate it to 0, then you solve for x, meaning your x ends up being 2. What does it mean? It means your vertical asymptote, it is 2, where a g into x minus 1, which gives you the equation of P of x. So that means this equation, it's actually the equation of P of
That's wrong.
x. Did I answer it wrongly, or did I make a
Yes,
mistake?
it's wrong.
What is wrong?
By the signs.
Which sign, Hami? So, is it Hamisa speaking?
X times, yes, it's me. X times -1 is negative x. -1 times -1 is positive. Aren't you timesing it?
Hamisa, you are losing me now. I'm not sure. Can you try to look at it, Hami, so and check if you're not the one who's wrong on this one. I'm not sure, but is there someone who understands what Hamisa is referring to there? I'm trying to think if I made a mistake, but I don't see where I made a mistake. Okay, maybe let me try to re-explain. Hami, so very, very much important that you remember that you have 1 over there. Nay, this is a minus. You multiply that by that by that. What are you getting? You have x minus 1 minus that 1. You have x negative 1, negative 1. You end up having negative 2. What's wrong there, Hami? So
Don't you times all of that with the -1?
times what? This inside.
Yes, because there's a bracket.
With which -1? This one.
The one on the right. Yes.
No. This one, it's not -1. This is -1. And now I understand where you are getting it wrong, Hami. So -1. This thing is -1 and not -1. I'm pretty much sure, Hamisa, that if you say 2, let's say -1, and you have -1, if you punch this thing, it's going to give you an error. Why? Because it is not mathematical to say that times that times that. This thing, it is not a coefficient. The coefficient, it is 1 in the front. You always say that by that and that by that. But wait, am I losing all of you on that one? Maybe Hamisa is right there, but I'm not sure. Nonti, can you say something there? Can anyone say something there? What's your understanding on that calculation there?
I understand.
Or are you also confused? But wait, are you also confused by what I've done there until I got 2?
No, I'm not confused.
Gracie, Koketso, can you guys say something there? If you understand what I've done there, I'm going to remove all of these and I'm going to explain something to Hamisa because she's making a very big mistake on that one. Hamiso, this one is not wrong, is correct. What you are saying is completely wrong. I'm going to explain to you why it's completely wrong. But I just want to make sure that everyone understood what I've done over there before I remove. Okay, no response. Let me quickly explain that. I'll just do it in 2 ways and say we have that, and then I'm having -1. We have x minus 1. I'm having -1. So I'm going to do what you're saying there, Hamiso. So what you're saying is that this times that you say is +1, I suppose. And you're saying that by that it is -x. I'm saying we have 1 here. You say that by that you have +1x. That by that you have -1. And then you minus with that 1. So it ends up being x minus 2. And this is what you're saying, Hamisa. If you assume x to be a certain number, you can substitute it there and check if you get the same answer. You won't get the same answer. let's maybe run a test. Let's assume x to be 2. So if you say 2 minus 1, and then you say minus 1, you punch all of this on a calculator, it is going to give you that minus that is 1, it's going to give you 0. But if you substitute 2 there, and you say negative 2 plus 1, it is going to give you what? Negative 1. Can you see? This does not correlate with that. That is why I'm saying this is mathematically wrong. Here, if you substitute 2 minus 1, that it is going to give you what? 0. And then if you substitute 2 there, 2 minus 2 is also going to give you 0. Before I move on to the next question, does it make sense, Hamisa? Do you see where you made a mistake on that one?
Yes and no. Okay, so I'm curious now.
Yeah.
Is it functions? Because sometimes if you get an equation, maybe it's 2y, open brackets, x plus y, close brackets, y, then you have to times both of them from both from both left and right. So why can't you do the
Okay.
same here?
Okay. You're saying
Why?
2 into x plus maybe 1, and then you say y there. Something like this, nay?
Yeah, why do you times this one by the other one, then you times it all by each other?
Okay.
If it's not
That's
meant to be
because
times from the right that side.
this is because the whole of this is a term. This is one term. But the moment you have this, either you have a sign of a plus or a minus in between, it becomes two terms. This is a term, this is a term. So for this one, you can write it as 2y into x plus 1. Then you multiply everything by 2y. Then you have 2xy plus 2y. But here, you cannot say, that's why I'm saying this thing, it's not a negative. If it was a negative, then it would be inside the brackets. Then the whole of that is one term. So when you have a sign either of a minus or a plus in between, you can only say that times that, that times that. Then you have 2x plus 2 plus y. Then it ends like that. So it's just a matter of knowing how many terms you are having on the problem that you are given. I'm not sure if it makes sense now, Hamiso.
Yeah, I understand now. Thank
Okay,
you.
okay. So that's a very good question, because when we get to this thing, a plus into n minus 1d, I'm sure Hamisa wanted to ask for this purpose. When you get to what is it? When you get to this chapter, number, pattern, sequence, and series, that's when it's applicable. So this thing, it's actually the same as a plus d into n minus 1. So this thing, it's actually inside the brackets. So can you see between that and that d, in between, you don't have a sign of a plus or a minus. That is why you can therefore say that by that, that by that. But if there was a sign of a plus or a minus in between, you cannot do that, because it's not a negative, but it is a minus in between. So that is the reason why you just need to be aware of how many terms you are having on the problem that you are given. Okay, so now moving on to question 4.4. So 4.4 says, determine the equation of the axis of symmetry of G in the form of y is equals to mx plus c if m is less than 0. Again, what is the question there? They want you to determine an equation of the axis of symmetry. Okay, what is the axis of symmetry? If you do not know what is the axis of symmetry, then you won't be able to answer this question. But Axis of symmetry for which function? Axis of symmetry of G. Which one is G? Is the hyperbola. So let me explain something to you very, very much important. Let's say, for example, you have your vertical asymptote inside there being 0 and another one being 0, that one for y. And then you have a positive a, just like we're having there, meaning your thing, it is going to be there and there. I'm pretty much sure that most of you guys still remember this explanation, but let me just explain it again for the sake of those who maybe missed those lessons. So axis of symmetry, it is that line that cuts whatever into two equal halves. You remember I've always been making an example using a slice of bread to say you can cut it like that such that it has two equal parts, or you can cut it like that, or you can cut it like that such that it has two equal parts. What about this one? So you can only cut this one, or a hyperbola, in two ways. One way, that's if you cut it like that. Can you see? This half, it is exactly the same as that half. That is why I'm saying with that line, you can cut it into two equal halves. Something very much interesting, guys. For this line that cuts it like that, you will always have a gradient which is positive, not even positive, but for that one, it's negative. You remember we said a straight line ending in the second and fourth quadrants, they always have a negative gradient. I'm sure you guys remember on that lesson where I was saying all the straight lines in that direction, they always have negative gradient. But for all the lines in that direction, they always have positive gradients. So this is another way in which you can cut a hyperbola such that you cut it into two equal halves. So if you cut it like that, can you see this side of that function and also this side of that function? It's exactly the same. But this function, it has a positive gradient which will always be positive 1. So that means for the axis of symmetry, for a hyperbola, you will always have a gradient which is either positive or negative. And most importantly, for you to determine an equation of any of those lines, you must have a known point where it passes through, of which in this case, it passes through the origin, where x is 0 and y it is 0. So the reason why examiner said where m is less than 0, they are actually trying to be smart by saying we want an equation of that axis of symmetry for that specific line. You tell me, do they want it for line number 1 or line number 2, and why?
For line number 2, because on line number 2, the gradient is negative.
Yes. So where that statement says where m it is less than 0, we know that anything that is less than 0, it is actually a negative, meaning they're talking about where the gradient it is a negative. So between these two lines, this is the one, line number 2, that has a negative gradient. So if I had to draw that line of symmetry on this function, it is actually going to be that straight line like that. It is not drawn to scale. As you can see, I'm using my hand to draw it, passing through that point there. So with what I've explained, do you guys think you can be able to determine an equation of that line?
Yes.
Sizoyenza kanjani mamkhize?
I think we have to substitute values of asymptotes of the asymptotes that we're given.
Yes. So That means we already know that the general equation of a straight line, it is y is equals to mx plus c. At the point of intersection of our asymptotes. Our asymptotes are at where x it is 1 and then y it is 2, which is that point there. That's where x is 1, y is 2. We already know the gradient because of that specification which says where m it is less than 0, meaning our gradient for that line it is -1. So that means we actually have let me say -1, y is equals to negative invisible 1 x plus c at that point. So you just substitute that point where y is that, -1 plus c. Take that to the other side, it becomes a +1. Then you end up having your c being equals to 3. It doesn't end there because they did not say give us the value of c, but determine the equation of the axis of symmetry. This is the equation. This is the equation. It is written in that format. Most of you guys make a mistake of leaving it there, Gracie. Just make sure that you give an equation because that's what they requested you to give. Most importantly, it has to make sense. Can you guys see that it does make sense? That point actually suits to be 3. If you got a negative value, that would mean your straight line was actually passing through somewhere below the origin. So that means the axis of symmetry, you have that one where m it is actually -1. The other one where m is positive, it is that one. So in your exam, please, when you're dealing with hyperbolas, just make sure to expect a question similar to that, or otherwise, if it comes differently, just know that this is the information that you can work with. Remember, guys, it's not only through this question where you can feel confident to say, now I fully understand the functions. It is advisable that you do as many problems as possible so that you feel confident in case if a question comes in any way, you should be able to then apply all the information that you gathered from either previous lessons or previous question papers. And most importantly, guys, if you watch the previous lessons that I've done and you struggle with something, it becomes very, very much easy for me to help you because everything that I've done, I already know about it. I won't have to first prepare for a lesson. Remember, guys, these lessons that I'm doing, I don't just do. I firstly have to prepare, study these questions, and also find suitable ways to answer these questions. Then that's when I can do a lesson. I don't just wake up and then we do a lesson. Some questions are difficult and I still find them difficult. But I always know that for a difficult question, I go back to these notes, I study the notes. Out of those notes, there's something that I'm going to find which is going to help me to answer these questions. So just make sure, guys, please make sure that when you study, you don't only do that one question and then you move on to something else. If your focus is on finance maths, just make sure that you gather all the question papers from the past 5 years. You only look at the finance related questions and make sure to have the memo for all the questions that you'll be treating. Check what the memo says, check how you've done it. Make sure to note down those that are difficult and seek for help. And most importantly, with the lessons that I've done, when you watch those, you might learn a thing or two. So don't confuse yourself by taking a question paper and you see an interesting question and you tackle that one. If you say I'm dealing with trick, focus on trick for that day. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, over there. So before I move on to the next question, Anyone who's got a question in relation to that? Or are we all clear on that question?
No questions.
No question from non-T. Anyone who's got a question? Silence in court. Okay. Remember, guys, most importantly, this is your chance to ask questions that you might be having in this lesson. Once I'm done here, I'm no longer coming back. I'm having this lesson recorded in case if you want to catch up, you can therefore watch this lesson up after it has been uploaded. From here, we move on to something else. So 4.5, write down the equation of K if K is the reflection of G about the X axis. Write down the equation of K. Write down the equation of K if K is the reflection of G. They are now talking about G, about the X axis. Okay, this is what I'm going to tell you guys. Before I even do that, just so that I make sure that I emphasize this if need be. Do you guys understand what that question means?
Yes.
I got a response from Non-T. I noticed Hamisa wanted to say something, but unfortunately, I couldn't hear you, Hami. So, can you maybe try to speak again? I noticed you unmuted your mic.
Yes and no at the same time.
Yes and no at the same time. Let me assume that it's a no. I notice the other guys haven't responded. So let's just assume a no, Hami. So let's say we have a point there called point H for Hami. So having the coordinates, let's say there it is 2, x is 2 there, and let's say y it is 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say y is 4. When they say point H reflects about the x-axis. So think of this. This is about the x-axis. That's why I'm doing that. So when we say it reflects, you actually swing it about the x-axis, meaning that point, it actually moves from where it is. Let's say it is somewhere there. Now it moves to this side, which is somewhere there, meaning something changes there. Let's say this is that. Something changed. The question is it the x value that changed or the x value is still the same? So that's a question
X
to you.
value is
All
still
the
the
same.
same, but the Y value
X is still
changed.
the same. What has changed about the y value?
It became negative.
Yes, meaning we have negative 4 over there. So remember, k of x, this thing, it is the same as y. But y for what? Y for k. So it is not written y for k, but it's written k of x. Same here. This is y for g, but it is not written y for g, but it's written g of x. From what you guys are saying, you say when something reflects about the x-axis, it is actually the the y that changes its sign. So it just changes from positive to what is it? Negative. Meaning you just put a negative sign over there. And then from there, you substitute and you work it out. That's it. It is as easy as that. So think of this function reflecting about that. So you are going to have that being on this side, and then that one, it will just reflect and it will do something similar to that. Yes, something of that nature. So meaning you just say negative into the function of g, which is that. So you end up having that by that and then that by that, meaning it's negative 2 over x minus 1, then this is negative that. So this is the new equation of k of x. It ends there. So what you notice is that your a value has actually changed, meaning it's going to change the quadrants. You remember, I said if your a is positive, you will always have your hyperbola in the first and the third quadrants. But if you have a negative a value, you will always have it there and there. So can you see? Your a has changed, meaning the quadrants of your hyperbola is going to change. And again, your horizontal asymptote has changed. It is now a negative, which is on that other side. But this one, it remained as what it is. Does it make sense, guys? Or am I losing you on this one?
It makes sense.
Makes sense.
Makes sense.
Okay. So it is not only for the hyperbola where you can expect that question. Even for a hyperbola, for a parabola or for any other function, you can expect this type of a question. So just make sure that as soon as you get this type of a question, you remember how the reflection works, and most importantly, you know that something changes a sign. If it reflects about the y-axis, just do that with your hand and do that, then you will be able to notice how it will look like after the reflection, meaning it is the x value that changes the sign. And again, when we talk about the inverse, before I forget, remember guys, some of these questions that I'm asking are not part of what we are doing there, but I think it's worth it for you to be aware of what an inverse is. If you have, for example, whatever a straight line equation that you may be having, it doesn't matter if it is a hyperbola or whatever. When we talk about the inverse, this is when you swap where you have y, you put x. Where you have x, you put y. And then you make y the subject of the formula. So inverse and reflection is what most of learners confuse. So just make sure to remember that when we talk about a reflection, we talk about something reflecting about one axis or about an asymptote. It just has to be about something. Sometimes examiner can try to be tricky and say about the axis of symmetry. So whichever way they ask a question, just know that when it's about a specific line, you just say from that line it reflects. Then the other one is negative. But when it comes to the inverse, for example, the inverse of that would be x being equals to 2y plus 4. This is the inverse, guys. It ends there and you get 1 mark for the inverse. But because they want you to perform some calculations, they're going to say give it in the form of y is equals to whatever. Meaning, you need to take that inverse and then you write it in the form of that, where you transpose, you end up having 2y equals to x minus 4 because you took it to the other side. And then you divide by 2, you end up having half x minus that divided by 2, it is that. So you get another mark for you to write it in that format of y, it's equals to something. So I hope you guys understand that part. I'm going to add one more last question, and then from there, I'm going to leave those remaining questions for you to work out on your own. But there's that one which is a bit tricky, but I'm going to explain it to you. That last one is just 1 mark. You can see how to work it out. And I'm going to show you guys something very, very much important before I move on to the next question. What did I want to say? I think, let me ask if all of you guys understood that before I add one more question. Did you guys understood what I've done there in terms of reflection and inverse?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, okay. So this is now what I'm going to do. Suppose they want you to give the coordinates of that point. Let's call it point T for Tabile. What will be the coordinates of that point? And I'm giving this question 7 marks because it's a bit tricky and it's a bit long. Anyone would like to give it a try?
Can you please repeat?
So let's say they want you to give the coordinates of T for Tabile. And this question is worth 7 marks because it's a bit tricky, not a bit tricky, but it's tricky and it's long and it's complicated. How are you going to calculate the coordinates of T for Tabile?
Is the point lying on f at x?
Yes, it's actually on f of x, on that fraction of f along the x axis.
We have to firstly find out like our general equation, and then from there on the y value we have to substitute 0. Can I? Okay, I'll do it.
Okay, noted, honorable member. Anyone
So,
who's got an idea of how to approach it?
okay, so I have y equals to, okay, I first have to find out like the general equation y equals to, they said it's x plus p squared plus q, right? Yes. Okay,
Yes,
so
so I think we ended up having, what was that other one? Was it, no, this one was negative 9 over 4. Yes.
Yes. So on the y value, because this is the x-intercept, which means I should let y equals to 0. So then I would have a 0 on the y value, and then x minus 1, no, x minus 1.
Okay, I understand. So we'll just take a shortcut on that one. So this is what non-T is saying. So she's actually going to work it out until the end where she gets an x value and another x value. In that way, she will get it correct. This is one other way in which you can do it. So what if I give that same question 1 mark? How are you going to do it? Silence in court. Okay, Remember, Bantu Bagit, if you have something similar to that, we already know the turning point. We already know that point. Let's maybe say this point, it is 4. And there we have 2. So you can still use the midpoint formula, because from that point to the turning point, it is the same distance as from there to there, where you say x in the middle is equals to x at point number 1 plus x at point number 2 divided by 2. The x in the middle, it is the one which is 2, which is equals to the x at that point for tabulae plus that second point being 4 over 2. That times that, you end up having a, what is it, 4, which is equals to x at point 1 plus 4. Take it to the other side, you end up having x being equals to 0. Remember, my thing, it's not drawn to scale, meaning in the real world, you end up having a, what is it, your y axis there. I'm pretty much sure that you guys fully understand my point on that one. Otherwise, if I wanted to be more accurate, I think I should have maybe said 3. Yes, I think 3, and then maybe make that one either 1 or yes 1, so that we have something on. But wait, let me not worry much about that, because I'm not that much interested on the accuracy of that drawing, but I'm giving you a second option in which you can deal with that, considering that it is now given 1 mark. So just be careful, guys, be careful, and always remember that the moment you're given the turning point and 1 x-intercept, you can easily find that using the midpoint formula, because that distance from there to the center, it is the same distance from there to there. I'm not sure. Am I not losing you guys on that one? Are you guys sure that you fully understand what I'm talking about there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, okay. So now let me explain to you guys 4.6, and then from there I will leave it up to you guys to work it out together with that other last question. Remember, guys, none of whatever that I'm giving you, it is compulsory. It is all dependent on your availability. I know most of you guys might be busy preparing for some other stuff. So whenever you get a chance, you just work it out. If need be, you can inbox your working, then I'll have a look at it. So that question 4.6, they say for which values of x is that multiplied by that greater than 0? For which values of x is f prime x multiplied by g of x, it's greater than 0. So the only thing that you need to be aware of is that here we are talking about the gradient. This thing written like that, I'm pretty much sure that you guys in matric, you are well aware that this is the first derivative, which is the gradient of f. So we are actually looking at that portion of the x values whereby the gradient of f multiplying a g of x will give us a value which is greater than 0. I'll give you guys an example or an explanation of something that you need to be aware of. When a parabola is drawn like that, please be aware that this side of it has got a negative gradient. up to the turning point. At the turning point, you know the gradient is 0. Then from there, it changes to become a positive gradient. Meaning, from this section going down, the gradient is negative. Why am I talking about the gradient for this one? It is because this portion of that, it actually talks about the gradient of f. And the gradient of f, it is negative on this side, but starts to be positive, on this side. So that means you are actually looking at a x values where you multiply a positive gradient by a positive x value for you to get a positive value, because a positive value, it is the one which is greater than 0. Or you are looking for where you multiply the negative gradient by negative value to give you a positive value, because a positive value, it is greater than 0. So can you see the x values of g on this side? The x values are positive. So can you see that means from where x it is 1 all the way in that direction up to infinity, that's where you're going to multiply the x value times the positive x value, and you're going to get a positive value, which is then greater than 0. It's a bit tricky, but for you to be able to visualize and be able to answer this type of questions, you must have done more of functions for you to be able to notice that this section of the function, it's either it is increasing or decreasing, or otherwise if we have a positive gradient or not. Maybe let me give you this other one. Can you guys notice that from here up to there, which is this section, from there to there, we have a negative gradient. Also, remember, on a hyperbola, this is the one that has a positive gradient, and this section has a negative gradient. So that's why I'm saying from this section and that section, or even up to infinity, because I'm actually focusing on x values between 0 and 1. If you multiply those two x values, you end up having a positive value. So that's what I mean by multiplying negative and a negative and you get a positive. Or you multiply positive by positive, you get that. So for those of you who already know how to derive non-T, which is another way in which you can work it out. So this is what you do, the Makoxin. You find the derivative of f. After finding the derivative of f, you write it as it is. Then you write g as it is. Then you can substitute any x value on this side, on the derivative and also there, and punch all of that on a calculator. Check what answer are you getting. If you get a negative answer, then it means for those x values it doesn't apply. Then try values in between there. Substitute x value there on both equations. Check if you're getting a positive or negative value. If a negative, then it doesn't apply. Try again to substitute values there. If you get a positive value, then it passes. Try also x values on this side. If you get positive, then it passes. Then you just need to say where x, or from where x it is 1 going in that direction, which is x is greater than 1. That's how you write it. That's how you write from 1 in that direction. And when you write between is written like this mathematically. You can just say, if you want to say between 0 and 1, you just say x in between and you write 0 and 1. That's how you write x between 0 and 1. Maybe a very quick example. Let's say they said where f of x times g of x is greater than 0. So you just take the equation of f of x, which is what was it known to? I think it was x minus 1 squared plus 9. No, it was minus 9 over 4. You take it as it is, and then you write also for g. No, this one is g actually. I swapped, it's fine. Let's say g of x multiplying f of x. F of, wait, no. This is the graph of f, that one, yes. And then for g, it was that one of t, x minus 1 plus 2 greater than. This is what I was saying. You substitute x value there and also x value there. You punch all of this on a calculator. You check if the answer that you're getting is positive or it's negative. You know that positive values are the ones which are greater than 0. So you're just targeting for positive values by testing x values on this side, in between, and also on that side. Where you get positive values, that's how you're going to make your statement. To say, when I punch x values between 0 and 1, I'm getting positive values. Then you write it as a scientific notation. And then you say, when I punch any value from 1 going up or increasing or in that direction, I'm also getting values which are greater than 0. So these are possible ways in which you analyze this type of questions. One thing for sure, the question that you'll be confronted with, it won't be exactly the same as this one, but this is how you approach it. You need to understand, are they saying when you multiply this and that and getting a value greater than 0? Sometimes they may not talk about a multiplication, but say where f of x you plus it with g of x. Do the same. Have a plus in between. Punch actually you punch the whole thing. You substitute the same x value. If you start with maybe -4, -4 there, punch the whole thing, check if you get a positive or negative answer. Then after that -4, try a value after where the function cuts the x-axis. Try those x values. Try those x values. Try those x values. Try those x values. But most importantly, whatever x value that you substitute there and there, it has to be the same. You can't say you test with -4, which is there, and then here you substitute a different value. You have to start with the same value, and check if on the question they said for values greater than 0 or less than 0. If they say less than 0, you know you're targeting for negative answers. Do you guys have a clue? Is it glue or clue? Whatever that it is, do you guys have an idea of what I'm trying to explain on that one, in case if it comes differently?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it everyone who's having a clue, or I'm about to make an assumption that okay, so I think we have spent a lot on this question. This is what I'm going to do very quickly, and I'm hoping to spend less than 10 minutes on this. I'm just going to explain this one last question on functions, and then from there, we are completely done on functions. I was hoping to do a sequence and series in today's lesson so that we wrap it up and we know that we have actually included it in our preparations. And most importantly, I won't do that introduction lesson that I've already done. You can watch it, catch up in case if you've got a question. This is the time where I welcome all the questions. After I'm done with the lesson, I welcome all the questions regarding the lessons that you might be watching. Anything after this time, I might not be available to help you because of some other responsibilities that I'm having. So I'm only available at this time. But in case if you're working on something and you are not sure, as soon as you're done, send it via inbox. It doesn't matter whatever the time it is, even if it's in the middle of the night. You just send it for me to have it in my record so that whenever I get a chance, I will look at it. Not that you're sending expecting instant response. So this is just for you so that you don't forget and you know you've sent something to have a look at. But most importantly, guys, you are the one who's supposed to do more of this. Train yourself so that you know if you are struggling or not. I'm just trying to find something. Okay, this is it. This is it. Non-T, I'm not expecting a response from your side. I do know very well that you've mastered this type of questions. I'm confident on that one. So this is what I'm going to be doing. Let me not ask any questions, but allow any questions that you guys might be having. This is what we are having. So this is from that question paper that I sent in the group, having all the questions. If you remember, day before we were doing this question. So that is where I picked this question, which is question 5.1. The first question says, write down the equations of the asymptotes of f. So you need to know that this is where you get your asymptotes. So for whatever question that you're having, you need to know where you find that information from the equation. Question number 2 says, write down the domain of f. Most importantly, when we talk about the domains, we refer to the x values. And then when we talk about the range, we refer to the y values. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, over there. And most importantly, because this is the only thing that you're given, it means all the answers should be found there. With you looking at that, somewhere you might find that you just pick a value there. But remember, always remember that this section, you always work it out in case of asymptotes. You don't just take it as -3, but you take it as the opposite sign, or otherwise you equate it to a 0 and then you solve for x. So, I'm sure you will never forget that if you are given an asymptote already, let's say as +3, on the equation you substitute it as -3. Non-T, it is that same mistake that you made today. Just make sure to always remember that. Question number 5. Okay, that was 5.2. 5.3 says determine the coordinates of the x-intercepts. The moment they say the x-intercept, they did not say intercepts, but intercept. That means they just want for the x. This is where you let y to be equals to 0 and then you solve. And most importantly, because they set the coordinates, your final answer should be in this format of 0 and something. Sometimes you guys make a mistake of just writing the final answer and not writing the coordinates. This is how we write the coordinates. This is the format in which we write the coordinates. When you get to varsity, the coordinates, it is now x, y, and z. Z representing the height. So this is actually 2 dimension. The moment we add Z, we represent the height. Very, very much important in our field of civil engineering because we deal with X, Y, and Z. For example, if you've got a mountain, to locate the top of that mountain, we need to provide the coordinates of the longitude and the coordinates of the latitude, and also the Z being the height at that point. Then we know that this is the height, maybe a 17 meter. So these are the coordinates at that point in the real world. So just make sure to understand the format for the coordinates. And then 5.4, they say write down the coordinates of the y-intercept of f. You do the same by letting x to be equals to 0, and then you work it out to get the y coordinates, and you also write it in that format where x is 0, and then that is whatever. And the last question, they say draw. So when they say draw, normally they specify to say clearly show all the asymptotes, meaning whatever that you draw, we need to see the asymptotes first thing first. And intercepts. You do know very well that you've got the y and the y-intercepts. Also show those because marks are allocated based on you showing the asymptotes and also the intercepts. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, that you pay full attention to all the details. I want to explain this thing to you guys to say, if question 1, it's allocated, let's say, 22 marks, and then question number 2, it is allocated, let's say, no, not 30 is too much. Let's say maybe it's allocated 12 marks. Let's say question number 3, it's allocated maybe 32 marks. Just as an example, this is what I used to do, guys. This is what I used to do. For each question, I'm targeting at least 80%. For each question, I'm targeting at least 80%. So that means if question 1, it has doable questions and difficult questions. I've already explained the simple, long, and difficult thing. I'm pretty much sure that I've explained during private and master classes. So let me not go deep into that. But when I say inside question 1, if you have doable questions and those which are long or difficult, please guys, just do the doable ones. Once you have reached 80% of that question, because some questions you know that you've done them correctly. Move on to the next question, guys. Try to also get at least 80%. If you can't get it, let's say if you get 50% for this question and the other questions are difficult, move on. Move on. Move on to the next question where maybe you can try and score, let's say, 70%, and the other questions are difficult. Move on to question number 4. Let's say question number 4, it is that much difficult and you score, let's say, 40%. Let's see, for a question paper where you were able to averagely get 80, 50, 70, and 40%, you can easily calculate your final mark based on the questions that you've answered, where for each question you got at least that, at least that, at least that, at least that. They may say answer all the questions, but do not waste your time on a question that you do not understand. When they say answer all the questions, under question number 1, you have sub-questions 1.1, 1.1.1, 1.1 up until maybe 0.7, you have 1.2, 1.3. You can just answer that if they're doable, that, and leave this one 1.3. Then you'll write it either under simple or in between or there. Maybe let's say 1.3, you write it there. You do that one. Another question, a bit long, write it there, 2.1. Do the same, whatever. You don't have to answer 2.1 even though it's difficult. You don't have to answer that even though it's difficult. Answer those once you are done with all other questions. And most importantly, make sure to confirm with your teacher if it is acceptable for you to start with a question that you feel like it's easy. Then follow that format of starting with the easy questions. Difficult ones, please do them last. How would I know if I've scored 80%? Let me just quickly check something. If you say 22 and you multiply by a 0.8, 0.8 is 80%, or you multiply it by 80 over 100, it gives me 17.5. So that means out of 22, if I can just get 17 and a half, let's say 17 or 18, if I can get 18 marks, then I know I got a distinction. For question number 2, obviously 50% is half of 12, it's 6. If you get 6, okay, it's better. For this one, if you want to get 70%, it's 32 times 0.7. You do that, you get 22, 23. So if you get 23 there, move on. But wait, guys, I'm about to now conclude. I notice my battery is on 3%. Did you guys understand what I was explaining there? Did you all get it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Does it make sense to everyone? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I got your responses, guys. So in that case, my name is Desmond. You guys have a very good night, and I'm out.